Welcome to FYI, the podcast where we have brief career chats with various professionals. My name is Dana Ramirez.
And my name is Sarah Shamasha. We are first-year experienced counselors, aka FYE, hint hint to our podcast name. Our vision with this podcast is to share the career journeys of alumni who started at the community college.
We're starting in 3,
2,
1.
Woo!
Dun, 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 dun.
We have our first guest today.
We do. I'm so excited. Our first guest and our second podcast. We're in a good flow. It's so exciting. We didn't just stop at 1. We kept going.
No,
We're here.
Keep on going.
Yeah. And so as we mentioned to you all in our first podcast, we're going to be having guests now from now on.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe here or there will just be solo, me and Sarah. But the goal is to continue to bring you different perspectives and different stories in that. And so today we have our guest, and we're going to give him the floor to just share a little bit about himself and just give us a quick intro.
All right. Hello. Thank you very much for having me. My name is Dr. Michael McHan. I am a professor in the communication department here at Grossmont College. I've been working in the community college district since 2013 and an alumni of Mesa and Miramar Community College.
I didn't know that. I didn't know you were from, for some reason I thought it was from LA. I thought I heard Santa Monica, but maybe I'm mistaken.
Yeah,
so
raised in San Diego.
Oh,
Pretty
that's so
local.
cool.
Yeah.
So I have a quick story to share about the doctor that we have on podcast today. So I briefly told you this last time, but one of our FYE now mentors was in your class, and I always kind of ask her like, how are your classes going, and she's like, oh, I have a presentation today. And so she was telling me about her presentation, and she was saying that she had them draw a picture of you back in the day or something like that. Can you share what that experience was like for you before we jump into that? Her name is Jade. I got permission for me to say her name.
Yeah, I remember vividly Jade's speech. It was a special occasion speech, and within their last speech of the semester, they're given a lot of leeway to select topics. And her speech specifically, she was taking on the role of an artist and painting a picture. And I happened to be her muse. So I guess we're sharing a lot here already so soon. So outside of academia, I had many careers growing up. I was a broke college kid, as I think many can relate to. And my goal was to graduate college with zero debt. Mm-hmm. So I had a variety of side jobs, and one of them, funny enough, was a male model.
Oh.
So there are some pictures. Lesson for anyone out there: what you do in life, once it goes online, it's really hard to take down.
No one Google search right now. Put
No
your
one
phones
Google
away.
search.
Don't even try it.
Yeah, of course. We opened up
later.
Pandora's box here. But she had happened to Google search, and she found one of my model pictures. So it ended up in our class for the muse for her project. And she had asked the whole class to also paint the picture. And funny enough, I actually still have her painting to this day. I kept it. Yeah, it was great.
My
She did a really good job. So,
that's so awesome.
Fun speech.
Can you imagine you're in class and everyone's drawing you?
Right.
That was just so funny. But she would just share how much great time she had in your class. And then I happened to run into you in an event, and like it all kind of clicked for me. And you shared a little bit about your story. And so I was like, yes, this is like perfect kind of the stories that we're trying to share. And so we know you have a busy schedule. And so we just feel really honored that you're here today. So we're really, really excited to get into your story.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so our question that we're going to be asking all of our guests and our very first guest, the question is, what is a word that would describe your career journey? Give us some insight as to why you picked that word.
So the first word that comes to mind is fortuitous, believe it or not.
Ooh.
I never thought I would be a college professor when I was younger. It was never a desired career choice. I was hoping to be either a professional athlete or a sports commentator. So I started my journey at Mesa College many years ago as a kinesiology major. I had recently achieved my first personal training certification, and I was doing personal training at some local gyms. I was more into the health and fitness industry, and I took a communication class. It was a public speaking class at Mesa College, and I fell in love with it. I had a background in sales, so communicating wasn't foreign to me. From the time I was very young, I was often told I had the gift of gab, and I think I had confidence, which definitely is an important element of public speaking. But going into that public speaking class, I think I stood out because of the confidence and some prior experience with sales jobs, and it was really fun. And honestly, too, it was a lot easier to give a speech than to write a paper. So it was a class that I enjoyed, and that was the first time I considered communication as even a major. I took another communication class after that. It was an argumentation class. And at that time, the professor of the course told me I'm joining the speech and debate team. I didn't even know what speech and debate was prior to that. I had never heard of it. So it sparked my interest. I did end up joining the speech and debate team, changed my major to communication. And then after many, many years, I'll be very honest, I was at community college for 6 years before I transferred. Life happens. So I definitely was dealing with a tremendous amount outside of school. And I think a lot of people can relate to that as well, right? I wasn't on that typical 2 years, get it done, transfer. I had bills. I came from a family where I was the first person to ever go to college. A lot of divorces, broken family, a lot of depression when I was younger as well. So I was also handling life while I was in school part-time, and it took longer. I struggled in a lot of classes, not because I wasn't capable, but just because I had a lot of stuff on my mind. And unfortunately, I think even at that time, I didn't really have a lot of understanding professors. But the one that did understand was the one who convinced me to join the speech and debate team and actually served as one of my first mentors. Her name is Kim Perigo. Special shout out to her over at Mesa College. She still is one of the speech and debate coaches all these years later. And we'll get into a really nice, coming back connection now that I'm also a speech and debate coach, and we work together, which is quite a trip, the full circle on that. But I ended up transferring to San Diego State, finished my bachelor's. In total, it took 8 years to get my undergrad. And then after that, I was excited. I started to enjoy school a little more once I got into a degree or into a major that I really liked, being communication. And after I finished my bachelor's, I had a health and fitness company. I was doing fairly well. And I don't know, something sparked the interest in a master's program. I think it was proof to myself that I am worthy of being a student. And because I had been told so many times in K through 12 and even in college that I wasn't cut out for school, and I was made to feel less than because they didn't also realize that I was going through a lot in life, and that was what was, restricting me from doing so well in school itself. It was sort of proving to others, all the haters and doubters out there, that I could do more. So I applied for a master's program. I got in, and that was the first chance I ever had to teach. So I was a teaching assistant, or a GTA, at San Diego State for their public speaking classes. Because I had such an extensive background with speech and debate and communication, it was a very natural fit for me. And I loved teaching. So then I started considering, is this something I can do long term? So I did 2 years of teaching in the master's program at San Diego State. I won a couple of teaching awards, favorite faculty, and it felt like it was a good fit for me. And I think one of the reasons I did so well is because of all the experiences I had as a community college student and as someone that dealt with a lot. I think I could relate more to the students that were also dealing with life. I didn't have the perfect path painted for me. And I was very honest and real with my students, and even with my own background and my dealing with mental health issues when I was younger. And I think they appreciated the candidness and the honesty. So I succeeded as a grad student teacher, finished the master's, and decided to pursue that. I applied at Grossmont College in 2013, that fall, right out of my master's program. And I got hired here in the communication department and fell in love with it as a career. So then I really started to be strategic and think to myself, if I am going to pursue this as a career, naturally, how can I be better at it? How can I make more money doing it? How can I increase the likelihood of landing a tenure or full-time job? And so the next step that seemed to make sense was to apply for a doctoral program. And if you would have asked me like 5-6 years before that, the idea of going to a doctoral program, there was no way I even thought that'd be a possibility, especially because I didn't really feel like I did well at school. I just, over the years, learned I was very resilient, and I didn't give up. So applied for the master's program, and ended up doing 4 or 5 years of work and completed a doctoral degree in education with a focus on post-secondary education leadership. The reason, by the way, tying back to using fortuitous is because as hard of a worker as I was, it was just meeting the right person at the right time. I happened to meet a communication instructor who encouraged me to consider speech and debate. And then at San Diego State, shout out to a professor named Bill Snavely. He was the director of the communication department, and he saw potential in me and actually even offered me a full-time job at San Diego State in 2014. So that really got my foot in the door. And then I just got encouragement from the right people to pursue the doctoral degree, and everything sort of fell into place. So I definitely was a very hard worker, and I've always believed in the law of attraction. Putting a lot of good energy out into the universe, typically it will result in good energy coming back to you. But I could have never predicted that I would have met someone that would have encouraged me to consider communication, nor to consider teaching. It just sort of happened. Looking back, would I change it if I could? No. I mean, I feel so blessed and fortunate to have the career I have, but I also put in the work to get here.
Yeah.
So it was a combination of meeting the right people, putting myself out there to meet the right people, and then doing the work to get the credential, to get the knowledge, to get the experience.
Yeah, it's really great. Like your whole journey, kind of how you went. I have like so many questions to kind of unpack. Yeah. Maybe I'll start with one and then we can kind of bounce off. I think the first initial one that you're kind of you were talking a little bit about was you started with kinesiology and you had those folks that kind of encouraged you in that transition. Once you started to get the second comms class, did you feel like confident, like communication was it, or did you still kind of struggle between other ones? You know, were you kind of an undecided stage? How was that, or was it just like, this is what I want to do, and you move forward with it?
Yeah, great question. So I would say for the most part, I had belief in myself, but I didn't have a lot of belief in myself as a student. And meeting a professor that instilled belief in me, it really inspired me to do more. And because she happened to be a communication professor who took me under her wing, it just fit. And in addition, I liked the communication courses. So it was a combination of finding a subject that I was very fascinated by and interested in and enjoyed learning, and also having an instructor that was willing to take me aside and mentor me. So I think that the idea of professors being available as mentors to their students is extremely important. On the other end as well, I would recommend students to be putting themselves in a position where you're able to be mentored by professors, because it's hard to replace that life experience. And sometimes learning through others' life experience will save you a lot of time and energy and making of mistakes that you would have not known about had it not been for somebody else to talk to you about it. And as a more specific example, like I think Kim Prigo, the professor at Mesa, was probably the first one that actually encouraged me to even do the doctoral program. I didn't even know about it prior to her mentioning it. Would I have researched it on my own and found out? Maybe. I don't think so. So it was just other people that were in positions of power that had already gone through the process, giving me advice, offering me help. And I took advantage of it when it was there, and it all worked out pretty well.
Yeah, it's like, I think just a parallel to our first episode. I also gave a shout out. We'll put out the episodes and maybe you can kind of hear that parallel. But I also gave a shout out to like my counselor as well. I think I was sharing that I didn't see, a master's. I didn't see these things, and it was kind of that person in the field. And I think one is that encouragement. But one thing as a counselor too that I try to tell students is, even if you're looking at 2 or 3 things, connect with people in that field, because they're going to be able to give you that insight that I wouldn't, counselors we wouldn't have as a nurse, these kind of real world experiences directly. And so I love that you kind of spoke to that piece of it, because that's one thing, at least in my practice, that I always encourage students to do. And also the networking, right? The connections that you had, the doors that it opened a little bit later as well. So that's, that other piece. But just even in the exploration piece, that connection to others in the field is really, really vital.
Yeah, very well said. I think sometimes we underestimate the importance of a network. Right. I do believe, of course, hard work is important, but sometimes the old adage, it's not what you know, it's who you know, is very true. And just being in the position where people were able to offer me positions, and I put myself out there, right? It wasn't like they found me randomly on campus. Like I made myself available, but they definitely presented opportunity. And I think being social, being friendly, being kind was something that went a long way. It reminded me of one of the reasons I actually got the position as the head advisor for the communication department at San Diego State right out of my master's program. I forgot about this till just now. I was, as a grad student, on a study abroad program in Europe. And I remember there was a little bit of condescension between the master's students and the undergrads, meaning some of the master's students, I felt like they were looking down on the undergrads. And that's never been my personality. I've never looked down on somebody. I never feel better than somebody else. Even if I have a doctorate, I don't care. It doesn't make a difference. We're all humans. We're all unique. We're all beautiful in our own ways. And I think having that respect is really important. So during this master's program, study abroad in Europe, I remember being very kind to everyone, including the undergrads, especially because some of the graduate students were being a little condescending towards them, not realizing that I had professors watching these interactions take place. And so when I finished the master's program, the director of the communication department at the time had said, we just had a position open for the head advisor position. And I was watching the way you were interacting with others, how respectful and kind you had been to the undergrads. I think you'd be a really good fit for this position. And because of the way I was treating others, I think it opened that door to being the head advisor, which really then catapulted my career in education. I wasn't doing it because I thought people were watching. It just happened to be a byproduct. But what a beautiful life lesson. You never know who's watching, and kindness goes a long way. Typically, I think that those people that are kind in society, others want to help them succeed. Whereas you have people that I call curmudgeons or that are always negative, the victim mentality, why me, they project that negative energy. I think it gets reciprocated. If you're constantly critiquing and complaining about the world, I don't think you're going to have the same amount of people trying to help you out. If anything, sometimes people avoid you. So to be that person that's optimistic, and I think it was also a result of everything I'd gone through when I was younger. They gave perspective, right? It really motivated me. But just really being a kind person and putting out a lot of good energy into the universe, I think it really helped because others see that. And they're more likely or more willing to offer me opportunity.
I think I'm just reflecting on everything that you've said so far, because all of it, like what I've gone through, like I really also with what we talked about with the first podcast, because like I came into the field kind of similar experiences, who I connected with, and my experiences kind of led me here rather than like my initial thing was. And I'm just like thinking, okay, like yeah, everything is interconnected. So like what you do, your worldview, who you connect with, who you talk to, and that's kind of what you were saying earlier with like counseling. We encourage students to network, to like be involved, to do different things, because just going to class, which is the reality of a lot of our students, especially if you're a commuter. At Community College, not all of our students are commuters, so most of the time they'll just come to class, they'll go home, they'll go to school, they'll go to work, and there's not really much involvement. So it's kind of nice to see your kind of experience. But speaking of your experience and all of that interconnection, you were talking about how like you struggled for 6 years. We have a lot of students that typically will struggle and will go through stuff, and sometimes it's difficult or challenging to kind of keep going. So I just wanted to get more of your insight on like, you know, maybe tips or things that you've gone through that you want to share that might help other students that are taking that long journey, that's not taking them 2 years, maybe 4 or 6 years, and kind of what you want to say on that to kind of help those students out.
I'm really glad you asked that. And the first thing that comes to mind easily is quit comparing yourself to others. We have a really bad habit of thinking we have to be like everyone else, when we fail to realize we're all so unique in our own life. And my life experience was really nothing like anybody else I knew. So for me to compare it to someone who is doing community college in 2 years and transferring on, it doesn't make sense. So I think I learned from a fairly young age to sort of block out the external noise and really focus on what I can control and what I can accomplish. And it really gave me a little bit of patience and grace in taking my time. That's not to say there weren't moments where I was down on myself and I didn't, reflect and cast judgment in comparison to others. But I think it was minimal compared to what a lot of people do nowadays. So I really just sort of kept my head low. I focused. And also another thing that I think was really helpful, when I was a community college student, social media wasn't as big. So I was able to have a little bit more blinders on and stay in my lane and focus on my own success without constantly being reminded about what everyone else is doing. And for college students nowadays, I think that's really difficult because not only are you constantly being reminded of everyone else's success, but also it's often their false success or their success without the reality of their lives. Meaning Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, they're highlight reels of someone's life. That's not their complete life. So we see these and think, oh, their life is so perfect. you also don't see that they struggle just like you do, that they have bad days just like you do, that they have financial issues, that they have relationship issues. But when you don't see that, you think they don't, or you fail to remember, and then you're like, why do I have these problems? Then you get down on yourself, you start to doubt yourself, you lose your confidence, you lose your motivation, and it can quickly become a downward spiral. So keep blinders on, quit worrying about what everyone else is doing, focus on yourself. They're not living your life. And a lot of people that are going to be critical, you're not going to see them again anyways in the future. Who cares?
Right.
Of course you have friends that care for you. Those people matter. Your family matters. But we got to quit worrying about judgment so much. And it's even one of the main things we teach with communication and public speaking and speech and debate. Why are people so fearful to speak in public? The fear of judgment.
Right.
It restricts us as individuals. And unfortunately, although social media has some benefits, it does create a lot of disadvantages and a lot of harms for people, especially with self-efficacy and belief in themselves.
Right.
So,
and it really takes a lot of courage for you to like not care about people's judgment and like being okay with being disliked, because that's when you're like, okay, like I know who I am, I like who I am, I believe in who I am, and then you kind of just keep moving forwards. So
you know what seems to happen to the more successful you become in life? The louder the critics are.
Right.
The more haters there are out there, because you'll find that you maybe start on the same baseline as a lot of your colleagues and friends and other people you graduate with, and everyone's like sort of competing to who's going to do best in life. 5 years goes, 10 years goes, and you'll have a small amount of individuals that are very motivated, they're focused, they're intentional about their actions, they can avoid the drama of social media, right? They can keep their attention spans limited to what they need to focus on, which is another huge issue with the current generation is attention spans. And then they, after 5-10 years, get their post-bachelor degrees, they get their master's, they get their doctorate degrees. And all of a sudden, all those other people that are in similar positions to how they were 10 years ago are the loudest critics, the first one to critique them. And you have to block that out. That's a sign of success. I would say if a lot of people are talking about you, you're probably doing something right.
Yeah, because you're doing what's good for you, not really what's pleasing to them.
Yeah.
That's kind of the main point.
And the coolest thing, too, is being able to have a life where you feel like you're helping others out. What is your fear of judgment? If I don't feel like I'm doing anything wrong, like I really try my best to be a nice person, to be respectful, to not treat others negatively or to cast harm out. And knowing that I do that, if someone is being critical or voicing a negative opinion, what is it based on? Like I don't have insecurities because I'm not doing anything wrong. Right. If I'm slandering or gossiping or talking bad about people or doing shady stuff, I'm going to be insecure. Because I'm worried that that's going to get brought up or someone's going to find out or someone's going to talk about it. But as long as I remain a decent human being, what is there to hate on? My success? Go for it. Have fun. It's going to make you look bad, not me, right?
Right.
And you can talk all you want. That's cool. But once again, you're not living my life.
Yeah.
You don't go home to my family like you don't have to pay my bills.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about my problems. Those are my things to worry about.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to help my life become better, I believe in symbiotic relationships. How can we help each other? That's beautiful, right? But if someone just wants to be critical and negative, I wish them the best. I really won't respond negatively because then you're just fueling the fire at that point.
Yeah.
But I wish them the best. I hope that they do well. Pretty much if someone's being really negative, that probably means they're going through something in their own life that is causing them to feel that way and think that way. And I'm not mad at them. I feel for them. I sometimes empathize with them, right? I show compassion. I don't retaliate. Keep my head high and I keep moving on. And if someone's in a place where they want to help my success, I'll help your success too. How can we do this together, right? Completely different story. So.
Awesome.
I have a question related to how you're talking about empathy and how that definitely goes into your job as an instructor, right? And so I think I started the same as you. I didn't envision that I teach a counseling class. I didn't envision myself to be an instructor. But now that you are, right, maybe someone is considering it or maybe they're at a different, stage in their career. What is the highlight that you love in your job as an instructor?
I think I have the best job ever. I love what I do. I practice gratitude daily, and I would say just about every single day I thank whatever higher. I don't even know what my religion is. I believe in something bigger. I just think I don't care what to call it. just names for a belief. So I will thank all the deities I can think of the job that I have been allowed to have in my life. Like, that's how much I love my work. And being real is so important with students. Being vulnerable, being honest, not oversharing. There's a fine line for sure. But not being ashamed of your past. I'm not ashamed of what I've gone through. It's what's made me me. It's what allowed me to be a teacher. And I think that's been a huge part of my life. And just seeing the change in students, especially teaching communication and speech and debate, seeing students discover their voice and find confidence and knowing what that can do to their long-term lives is extremely rewarding. So I'm blessed. I'm so blessed to be a professor, to be here at Grossmont. It's a wonderful campus, a wonderful college, and just giving back, I think, is a rewarding thing to have as part of your career. I don't feel like it's a job. I don't. Most days I get to show up. I feel like I'm hanging out with friends. I feel like I get to go to a place that I love.
That's fun.
And that's the goal, right? Yeah. Isn't that the goal of most people? Yeah. To be able to have a job that not only you love, but that is fulfilling because it makes the lives of others better. It's a win. And fortuitously, I happened to get this job, but it was also hard work and, you know.
Yeah. And I think I feel similar in that in my role as a counselor. Like, it is difficult and stressful sometimes, but I think I like to say, like, my job is with purpose and intentionality, and so I think that fuels me as well. Like, I see, like you mentioned, the impact that I have on my one-on-one sessions and classes and things like that, so that kind of helps kind of carry on and like the work that you do, because it's not always easy. Not every day is just, even if you love what you do, right, there's still like difficulties in it, but having that intentionality and that purpose. And I think sometimes in talking to students, that's hard, right, for them to find. I don't think as a community college counselor, as a community college student, that light bulb kind of came up right ahead. But and you talked a little bit about it, but can you tell us a little bit more when you found out that communication was like your major in community college? What were you considering job-wise with that once you've already decided that? What were you thinking of? When I graduate with my bachelor's, I may do X, Y, or Z. What were you kind of thinking about?
Yeah, that's a really good question. When I was finishing my bachelor's of communication, my goal was still in the health and fitness industry, honestly, because I had a personal training business that was doing pretty well. It wasn't until I decided to pursue the master's where I discovered a different career possibility. And there was really only one option. It was either health and fitness industry, or then I'm in a master's program, I'm a TA, and now teaching is a possibility. So when I finished the master's, I was deciding, and I actually did both for a while. I was teaching part-time as an adjunct faculty. I was full-time at San Diego State as an advisor and lecturer over there, and I was still running my personal training business. So I actually had multiple careers because I didn't want to have to go into debt for my doctoral program, and I knew that if I worked more while I was in my doctoral program, I would be able to increase the likelihood that I could graduate with zero debt. So I worked really, really hard for those 4 or 5 years I was in my doctoral program to pay that off while I was going to school. I paid out of pocket. But really my only two career options at that point were personal training and teaching. And then as I finished the doctoral program, the teaching became more real. I had been doing it for 4 or 5 years at that time. I became better at it. And then it slowly turned into a more long-term sustainable career. Within the health and fitness industry, I didn't have retirement, I didn't have pension, I didn't have health care. So it wasn't as sustainable of a long-term career. And teaching just made sense. And both careers, luckily for me, were ones that I enjoyed that were helping people. One was more physical with the health and fitness, and I would say that education is almost a little more intellectual. Granted, it encompasses more than just that, but that's one of the main elements of it. You're shaping someone's mind, and so that was the alternative. And then it just continued to get more and more. And then I got better and better, and then I put myself into better opportunities until ultimately I found a tenured track position here at Grossmont College about 4 years ago.
Awesome.
Can I mention one other thing? Because you said something in your statement, in your question to me previously, that I thought was very insightful. And it made me think of something that I think would be helpful just to share. As I've gotten older, I've realized that stresses in life don't disappear. Adversity will always happen, and I don't want to come across like I'm seeming like my life is perfect and I don't also still have stress. I do, trust me. I have 2 young kids. I have a lot of stress. The difference is my perception of stress has changed. Whereas when I was younger, I would have stressful adversity and it was like the end of the world. You know, I couldn't believe it. It would break me. It was hard to handle and to get through. I have learned as I've gotten older that stress is part of life and that that's okay. So now when I have bad days, I'm okay with having a bad day. Instead of fighting it, not wanting to have a bad day, I just go with it. So if today is off, today is off. I'm honest about it. But you know what tomorrow is? A brand new day. And I get to decide every morning I wake up how I'm going to approach, how my mentality and perspective is going to be towards that day. So I don't hold on to it as much. I allow myself to feel emotion. If I need to cry, I'll cry. I don't care. If I want to sulk, I'll sulk. But instead of sulking for a couple of days, it's maybe like 20 minutes. And then I'll ask myself, I reflect. I'll say, Michael, are you done? And then sometimes they say, no, I want to still be sad. Okay, be sad. Then I give myself permission to be sad. Other times, are you done? Yeah, I'm done. Right? Like, do you need more time? No, I'm good. Like, I talk to myself all the time. It helps me process my emotions and my feelings. And so in those bad days, they're not bad days to me anymore. They're part of life. The good and the bad are the same. They're just different things. They're different emotions. You can't have one without the other. And experiencing those bad, you know what it lets you do? Enjoy the positives more. It gives a reference to it. If everything's always good, you get bored. So having those down days, I'm like, oh, that's right. Life can be tough. But tomorrow being a good day, I'm going to appreciate it that much more because it's not guaranteed.
Well, thank you so much for your insight. I feel this was really the core purpose of the podcast, and everyone has their own journeys and how they got there, and just kind of your beliefs. Even I'm looking at, how do I look at my bad days? Maybe I need to relook at that. So just thank you just for that as well, and just your presence and energy overall. As we mentioned, you're our first guest, so we're going to definitely shout you out when we kind of put this out there. And so if you are at Grossmont College taking classes, definitely sign up, or even looking for the speech and debate team.
Life-changing.
Yeah, as you can see, you get to get more of these gems on a regular basis instead of just on this short podcast. But anything you want to end with, Sarah?
I just wanted to thank you for sharing of yourself, of your experience. Like, it was a lot. I didn't know you before this, and now I know you so much more. And I'm appreciative of you and your life experience. So I just wanted to thank you for coming on and just kind of sharing of yourself.
My pleasure. And to anyone listening, just know life gets better if you allow it to. Hang in there. The tough days are part of life, and that's okay. Be graceful. Express gratitude. Keep your head up high. And you can create an amazing life just like I did, because I promised you the odds were stacked against me from a young age. I was very underprivileged in many ways, and I made it, and I'm making it, and you can too.
Thank you. And so with those wise words, we're going to get to a close. Till next time, bye. See you later.
This has been the FYI podcast with the counselors of Grossmont College, brought to you by Liliana Lomelí of Griffin Radio.